Hi, and welcome to Stamp with Ginny. Today I'm going to share with you how I made this lovely masculine card using the Vintage Tools stamp set found in our annual catalog. This stamp set is perfect for those home improvement guys in our lives. So let me set this aside and I'll show you how I got started. I'm going to start with the stamping for this project, and I'm going to be using my 3 little rectangles here, my tuxedo black, and my tools. And I'm simply going to stamp my tools onto the cardstock randomly. I've got the pliers moving on to the tool here, and I'm going to use the little nails, and I'm going to put a few here and then one here, simply by spacing my image on the cardstock. And then I think I'm going to put the clamp on this one. I've got that done, and I'm going to move on to my sentiment. It's your day, and I'm simply going to stamp that in the center of the strip. There we go, quick and easy. And then I'm going to bring in my inside panel here, and I'm going to add a little bit of interest to the inside panel. I think I'm going to take the little planer here and simply stamp that in the bottom right hand corner. There we go. I've got all my pieces stamped, and so now I'm ready to start adding some color to make this look a little more vintage. So let me show you how I did that. I'm going to bring in my Sahara sand, my blending brush, and a clear block. And I'm going to pick up that ink, tap off, and then start swirling around the outside edge. Now the Sahara sand is one of our lighter colors, so if you want a little more to show, make sure you pick up plenty of ink. And I'm simply going around the outside edge, re-inking, tapping off, and repeating. I don't want the color to be so strong I can't see things, but I want a little bit to age that cardstock. I've got the first piece done here, and I'm going to move that to the side. I'm going to bring in my designer series paper, and of course you want to move around your ink pad when you're pulling ink up like this, because it'll pull the ink out of the pad itself. I've got the outside edge of my designer series paper done. I brought in a piece of cardstock that I've embossed with our folder here. And I'm simply going to swirl a little bit around the outside edge of that, just to bring up that grain and make it pop. And of course, if you're getting a lot of ink on that clear block, feel free to pick it up and use that also. There we go, outside edge. And now moving on to the tools. Now for the tools, I want to add it to the corners that there's not a whole lot, a little heavier than around the tool itself. Pick up some more ink, tap off, and do the second one. And finally the last. There we go. I think you're going to love the blending brush. It gives this wonderful soft look to your project. I'll put that away and I'll show you the steps for assembling. Okay, I'm going to start with my paper snips here, and I'm simply going to cut an even portion of cardstock off of each side of the sentiment here. And then I'm going to take my paper snips and snip the center and from each corner into that pointed area to create this little banner, and repeat on the other side. There we go. I've got my banner done, and I'm ready to move on to the punch. I'm going to use my rectangular postage stamp punch and a piece of basic black cardstock, and I'm going to punch 3 pieces. Once I have those 3 pieces here, I can adhere these 3 tools onto that. So let's see, I'm going to flip these over and add the adhesive at one time. Just a little bit on the back. I'm doing this flat because I'm going to pop these up later. So tool number 1, tool number 2, and tool number 3. There we go. At this point, I can flip these over at my dimensionals, and I'm going to use my minis for this because I just want them in the corners. If you wanted to add one to the center, you could. Okay, I've got the dimensionals added, and I'm going to set those to the side. Next, I'm going to bring in my designer series paper and my basic black cardstock panel, and I'm going to adhere that down. And then I'm going to bring in my wood panel here and adhere that down in the center. Okay, at this point, I can bring in my card front and fold that on the score line and then adhere. Now, I like to add the panel before I add anything that's popped up. It just is easier, especially if you're using our stamp and seal. Okay, I've got that done and I'm ready to add my tools. I'm going to remove all the dimensional backings. Once I've got the backings removed, I'm ready to start adding them to my card front. So I'm going to start with the tool here in the center and simply lay that down. And then I'm going to pick up the pliers on the left and lay that down. Now I'm going to take it over the edge just slightly because I want to leave some space between these. There we go. And for the final clamp here, I'm going to do the same thing on the right. Okay, I've got that done. And of course, I'm ready to add my ribbon to my sentiment. So I'm going to bring in a piece of my scrap grid paper here for my Stamp-A-Majig and my seam binding, my basic black blends, and I am going to simply run that blends along the side of the ribbon. And I'm using the side of my marker so I don't damage my tip. There we go, one more pass here. And I think that's pretty good. I'm going to allow it to dry for a couple of seconds while I add adhesive to the back of my sentiment panel. I'm going to use my Stamp and Seal for this so that I've got a nice line down the middle, and that way I can just attach my ribbon and then add my dimensionals. I've got 3 dimensionals on here, so I'm going to remove the backings. Bring in my card front and lay my sentiment right on top there. I like to leave that ribbon a little long because that allows me to have a handle, and then I can quickly and easily bring in my paper snips and trim that ribbon the way I want it. There we go. I just think that Stamp and Blend gives it such a beautiful shimmer to it. Last but not least, I want to add a little bit of bling to my project. And so I'm going to bring in these classic matte dots. I love they come in all the colors and they have 2 sizes. And so I'm going to pop a few of these right onto, let's see, my card front there, just for a little bit more texture. And then I'm ready to adhere this to the inside of my card, or just set it there for when I'm ready to write my message to the recipient. That's it. It's that quick and easy. I think you're really going to enjoy the Vintage Tools stamp set that's found in the annual catalog to make wonderful masculine projects like this. And of course, if you'd like any of these products, feel free to stop by my online store. You can get there from my blog, Stamp with Jini. Thanks for joining me.